The alarm goes off and you open your eyes, but the first feeling is not sleepiness. It is weight, not the kind that comes from a late night, but the kind that sits in the bones. Like your body has already spent the day's entire budget. Your limbs feel drained, your chest slightly tight, and without noticing you are clenching your jaw, teeth resting against each other as your breath stays shallow. Under it all, there is a low, steady hum of anxiety, not loud enough to call panic, yet constant enough to color everything you do. The strangest part is the timing. You have not moved, you have not faced a single demand, and still you feel like you just finished a long run. And then the real paradox arrives. On the outside, you still look fine. You show up, you function, you even get praised for being capable and composed. That contrast is what makes this exhaustion so confusing. If you are truly okay, why does your body wake up already fighting for air? What you call strength in moments like this is often less a gift and more a survival setting that got locked in place. Think of a phone stuck on extreme battery saver for years. It still runs, it still does the essentials, and from the outside it can look impressively efficient. But everything human gets compressed. Needs feel optional, rest feels suspicious. You become someone who rarely complains, rarely asks for help, and quietly carries a workload that would overwhelm most people. In a crisis, you are steady, almost clinical, because urgency is familiar territory and your system knows exactly what to do. The cost shows up in the places no one applauds. Emotions get pushed down until they feel far away. Your own desires start to register as inconvenience. Even joy can feel muted, not because you are ungrateful, but because your body has learned to conserve by shutting off anything that might make you vulnerable. This version of toughness once kept you functioning when you had no other option. The problem is that when life becomes safer, your nervous system does not automatically update. It keeps running the old program, long after it stopped being necessary. That old program has a quiet signature. It is not just being reserved or introverted. It is a kind of watchful silence, where part of you is always scanning. You walk into a room and before you even register the topic of conversation, your attention is already mapping the emotional weather. You notice how someone sets down a cup, how quickly another person answers, whether a smile reaches the eyes. You choose a seat that gives you a clear view and an easy exit, not because you are dramatic, but because your body prefers options. Even in friendly spaces, your mind tracks micro shifts in tone and posture, as if it is reading subtitles that no one else can see. This sensitivity is not random. For someone who learned early that safety could change without warning, small cues mattered. Catching them fast meant you could adjust, go quiet, smooth things over, or get out of the way before trouble landed. The twist is that the skill does not turn off when danger is gone, so you can be laughing and nodding along, while your nervous system stays on duty, never fully dropping into rest. When you live that way long enough, you start labeling the results as personal flaws. I have trust issues. I isolate. I need control. I feel numb. I am always exhausted. But in psychological terms, these are often less character defects and more nervous system strategies designed to reduce risk. If trusting quickly once led to disappointment or danger, the brain learns to slow the process down. If closeness used to come with unpredictability, solitude can feel like the only place your body can breathe. If the environment was chaotic, control becomes a way to make the world readable again. Not because you are rigid, but because uncertainty feels like a threat. Emotional numbness can be the mind's way of lowering the volume when everything is already too loud inside. Even the chronic fatigue makes sense through this lens, because vigilance is expensive. It is like a door that got slammed by strong winds too many times, so the hinges learn to pull it shut even when the breeze is mild. None of this means you are broken. It means your system adapted to instability with remarkable consistency. The question is not what is wrong with you, but what your body had to learn to keep you safe. Under the hood, a lot of this traces back to how the brain learns threat. The amygdala is one of the key alarm centers, constantly evaluating whether something feels dangerous. After long periods of stress, it can become overtuned, like a security system set so sensitive that a cat walking past triggers the siren. The moment that alarm flips on, Your body releases cortisol and other stress chemicals to mobilize you. Heart rate rises, muscles prime, breathing shifts, and attention narrows toward detection and response. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that helps you reflect, regulate, and choose a thoughtful response, often loses influence under high arousal. It is not that you suddenly become irrational as a person. It is that your brain prioritizes survival circuitry over executive control. That is why positive thinking rarely works on command in these moments. You are trying to talk yourself down while your biology is escalating. It is like telling a smoke alarm to be quiet by giving it a motivational speech. The important distinction is between knowing you are safe and feeling safe. Knowledge lives in the story you tell yourself. Safety is a body state, and a nervous system shaped by prolonged threat will not update just because you logically understand your situation. Healing has to include experiences that retrain the body to recognize the present, not just thoughts that argue with the past. When that alarm becomes the default setting, you end up living in chronic hypervigilance, a state that can look perfectly normal from the outside. You show up, you meet expectations, you respond to messages, you handle responsibilities. But internally, it is like sitting in a parked car with your foot pressed on the gas, engine revving for hours. Your muscles keep a low-grade tension as if they are waiting for impact. Your breath stays shallow, your stomach stays braced, your heart is ready to jump. Even when you are not thinking about anything frightening, part of your brain is running predictions, scanning for what could go wrong, rehearsing how to prevent it. That constant background processing burns through energy the way an overloaded computer drains its battery, not because it is doing visible work, but because it is keeping too many tabs active at once. This is also why sleep can stop feeling restorative. If your system never fully powers down, rest becomes more like a brief pause than a true reset. You can wake up after a full night and still feel depleted, not because you slept wrong, but because you spent the night on internal patrol. The exhaustion is persistent because the threat response is persistent, even when the threat is not. For a lot of people, this pattern does not begin in adulthood. It begins in an early environment where the emotional ground was never stable. Maybe a caregiver could be warm one day and cutting the next, so connection always carried a question mark. Maybe the house had a tension you could feel in the air, where a small mistake could suddenly become a big problem. In those settings, children learn to monitor moods the way sailors monitor weather, because it is the difference between calm and storm. Sometimes it goes further into parentification, where the child becomes the emotional adult. You might have acted like the household switchboard operator, receiving everyone's distress, translating it, smoothing it, keeping the peace so things did not spiral. Over time, that creates survival beliefs that feel like common sense. If I have fewer needs, I am easier to love. If I stay quiet, I stay safer. If I carry it alone, the house stays calmer. None of those beliefs are irrational when they are formed. They are brilliant adaptations to an unpredictable system. The tragedy is that they do not expire on their own. You can grow up, move out, build a new life, and still feel compelled to stay small, stay alert, and keep everyone stable, even when no one is asking you to. So when you finally try to set a boundary, guilt often rushes in like an alarm of its own. It can feel less like a thought and more like a reflex, as if some internal judge is warning you that you are doing something morally wrong. But if your early safety depended on staying useful, staying agreeable, or absorbing other people's emotions, then stepping out of that role will register as danger, even when it is healthy. Your nervous system remembers an old equation: displease them and you lose safety. That is why distance can feel cruel even when it is necessary. Reframed psychologically, boundaries are not rejection of a person's humanity. They are refusal to participate in a cycle that keeps harming you. It is the difference between saying I hate you and saying I will not keep fixing problems I did not create. In that sense, creating space is not proof that you are cold or ungrateful. It is evidence that a part of you is choosing stability over obligation and choosing to survive in a new way. And here is the complicated part. The very experiences that wired you for hypervigilance can also produce abilities people admire. You can read a room fast. You can sense shifts before anyone names them. In a crisis, You get calm, focused, effective, because your body recognizes urgency as familiar terrain. It is like you carry an emergency kit everywhere you go. So when something breaks, you are the one who already has the tools. But what works in a storm can backfire in peace. In safe relationships, you may still brace for impact. You may interpret neutral silence as rejection, a delayed text as a warning sign, a small change in tone as evidence that something is about to collapse. You keep your protective equipment on even when there is no fire. Over time, that makes comfort feel oddly untrustworthy, like the quiet before something bad happens. This is why so many high-functioning people feel restless when life is stable. Their nervous system was trained for survival, not for ease, and it does not automatically believe that calm can last. So healing cannot just be a moral command to forgive, reconnect, and move on. For many people, real healing begins with a quieter, harder step, accepting what certain people are actually capable of giving. If someone is emotionally colorblind, you can keep holding up your inner world like a painting, begging them to see the shades you see, but they will keep insisting it is all the same. That is not your failure. It is a limitation in their wiring, their maturity, or their willingness. Acceptance is not approval. It is the decision to stop spending your life trying to get nourishment from a source that cannot provide it. From there, the focus shifts to choosing environments that downshift your nervous system. A chosen family can be friends, partners, mentors, or communities where your body notices the difference before your mind does. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. You breathe deeper without forcing it. These are not small details. In trauma psychology, safety is not just an idea. It is a physiological experience. Look for people who respect boundaries, who are consistent, who can repair after conflict, and who do not punish you for having needs. That is where your system learns a new baseline. And sometimes the retraining starts with something almost embarrassingly small. You feel guilt spike, and your impulse is to write a long message, to explain, to defend, to prove you are not a bad person. Before you send anything, pause. Put a hand on your chest or your lower belly, wherever you can feel contact most clearly. Slow your breathing just enough to notice that you are here, in this room, in this moment. Then ask a simple question. Is there actual danger right now, or is my body replaying an older threat? Offer yourself a sentence that grounds rather than argues. I made it through. I do not need permission to be safe. The point is not to win a debate in your head. The point is to give your nervous system a new cue, a different ending to the same old script. Each time you choose presence over performance, you practice becoming the steady caregiver you lacked. Over time, that steadiness becomes an internal relationship you can rely on. When you see the pattern this way, the story changes. This deep exhaustion is not laziness, and it is not weakness. It is the predictable cost of a nervous system that had to live in protection mode for too long. If you are the one learning to set boundaries, to choose calmer connections, and to listen to your body instead of overriding it, you are doing more than self-improvement. You are interrupting a cycle. In trauma psychology, that matters because patterns repeat until someone makes them conscious, then makes them different. The past may be written into your reflexes, but the future is still soft, still shapeable, formed by small choices repeated with care. The goal is not to erase what happened or to pretend it did not affect you. The goal is to build a life where survival skills are not running the whole show. You already learned how to endure. Now you can learn something that feels almost unfamiliar at first. How to live in a body that trusts it is allowed to be at ease.